everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Saturday Talks. If you have been watching this series for a while, then welcome back. If not, welcome. So this month we have a couple of things for you, but I have a couple of announcements. So first things first, this channel has officially made over 100 subscribers. That is amazing. So I'm really happy about that. Not just because of the fact of just getting over 100 subscribers, but mainly because it's like, wow, like people really care about language and culture. And the whole point of me doing this through our nonprofit, Multilingual and Philanthropic Incorporated, is mainly to be able to give you guys inspiration of language learning so that you're able to, so you just feel like there's less roadblocks. And also by doing these interviews that we've been adding recently in terms of just getting people's perspectives on language and culture. From Sonia Bahala talking about living abroad and having to not only just learn a whole new environment, but learning a new, language and, and encompassing that. And then also having my friend Flo from France talking about French culture, because not only that, but it's kind of like the reverse for us. It's like we think about foreign languages as like, oh, we want to learn this language, but the thing is that it's the same thing for other people, because French people, English is a foreign language to them, versus the same thing where French is a foreign language to us here. So we're in the same boat, we're just in the opposite sides. So just getting different perspectives. Also, if any of you guys are wondering what this is, I got like a mild case of carpal tunnel. So when you spend a lot of time editing and typing and whatnot, I was really surprised that like it happened with my left hand, because my right hand is my dominant hand, but I don't really know. I mean, I'm like almost 24 years old, and I was like, oh, like I can't get carpal tunnel. That's like what happens like over years and years of it. So I was like, oh, this is a thing. So yeah, so this is kind of on to kind of keep myself, so I kind of restricting the movement of my wrist to take the pressure off. But yeah, that happens. So really excited about reaching over 100 subscribers. And obviously our goal is to reach more people so that we can also, like I was just saying, it's just making sure that language and culture just doesn't feel like it's like this thing where it's like, oh, I have to like, be motivated. I mean, yeah, motivation is part of it, but I think motivation can also be enhanced when you have content that is taking that pressure away of, oh, it's hard because of X, Y, and Z. Well, I'm really wanting to just be able to show you guys it's not hard. It just takes a lot of time and effort, and just showing you ways of how to incorporate it into your everyday life. We also give like language learning tips on our Instagram at Language and People. You can check that out. The link is also in the description. And also just mainly just ways for us to just build a community of people who just want to learn about other cultures and be somewhat near of a peaceful society, if that makes sense. So I also have another special announcement, and I'm going to get to that. Hi everyone, on behalf of Multilingual and Philanthropic Incorporated, we're actually offering one-on-one sessions in English, French, Spanish, German, and coming soon, Italian. And we want to provide these one-on-one options is because if you really want to learn a language and you want to learn from a real person, then we have that option for you. Or if you're already taking classes or online courses and you just really want to get that extra help, that's a resource available to you as well. And we really want to do this because 100% of the proceeds is going to hit our 2021 goals, which really aligns with our mission statement, which includes creating effective teaching methods, also being able to provide affordable resources for you to learn a language, and also being able to help provide opportunities for you to practice what you've learned and build global networks. So really, if you really are interested, make sure that you go to languageandpeople.org/online-courses now. I'm actually have been working on, and basically that is available now. So you do want to, if you're really wanting to get one-on-one instruction with someone, I'm available, and I wanted to do this because, again, that is an option. That's something that is really effective for some people. They really like to have, one-on-one sessions with people. And there's also, the fact is we're also working on developing an online course as well on basically step-by-step like details on the best and most effective ways to learn a language. And basically that that course we're actually offering as a free entity because, again, one of the things that we surveyed over the past year from people who either had experience with learning a language or are trying to learn one but then haven't really had, like, what, asking people what things mainly held them back, what could have been different. A lot of people said that they'd be more likely to learn a language consistently if they had more affordable resources. So that's one of the resources that we're offering, just to kind of give you some motivation, because if you feel like you don't know where to start, it's like, okay, well, let me tell, I mean, this is based on my perspective. So that's why I'm making it free, because this is not like an end all be all, because again, this is what worked for me. And this is also based on how to incorporate language into your everyday life. Just by the fact that, again, I am a multilingual. I've done this like 10 times practically. So, as a multilingual, I want to tell you, basically, from having to start and learn a language over and over and over and over again is what kind of has worked and what hasn't worked, basically for me. And hopefully that's helpful. And the other aspect is that we really just, like I said, we really want to create affordable, if not free, resources if we can. You also have a beginner's French course, which you can also find that on our online dash courses page, which if you go to languageandpeople.org and then you'll see online courses. I basically added that page like earlier, I want to say earlier this year, because a lot of times like I look for online courses but like are relatively free but like, or like affordable but like not like, it's like you're looking for something that's actually engaging. Like I don't like online courses where it's someone, kind of in this setting where it's like you're watching someone tell you all this information and it's just like, oh, okay, I'm just supposed to take notes or something like that. I really look for courses that are interactive, that teach based on different learning styles. So like visuals, like people like to actively, like hands-on, they like to actually practice, they like having practical uses or learning about culture and things like that. Some people like vocabulary, some people like grammar, some people like, being able to read stuff, some people like when people instruct them. So I do look for courses that are really as interactive as possible and are at really low cost, if not free. So you can check that part of our website out. So so it's just basically, we just want to create as many effective resources for you as possible, because again, like I said, I've done this like 9 different times. So at this point, I feel like this is worthy of sharing, because I know that people tell me all the time, they're like, 9 languages. I'm like, yeah, you just get curious and you just learn things. So without further ado, I do want to get on with the interview, which is going to happen now. So this week on Saturday Talks for the month of April, it is also a time where I really want to talk about just different brands and different people, especially learning different languages. So this week, I actually brought in a student of mine, Elizabeth. Hi.
Hi, Jazz. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah. How are you?
I'm good. I'm excited to be on, and I've learned so much from you already. So I'm excited to share that with your YouTube followers.
Okay. Yeah, and so just tell me like a little bit about yourself, because I know what I know about you is just from when I, from teaching, and then every little bit of what you tell me. But I kind of want a little bit more about your background and, why, like your history with like languages and culture and whatnot.
Yeah. So let's see. Funny enough, when I was in high school, I had one of my best friends. She thought it would be a good idea to learn a new language. So we chose a language, and I was thinking something along the lines of like French, or like something more more common, I guess, at least where I'm from. And she was like, how about German? And I was like, yeah, German, let's do that. Kind of random, but I'm totally down for that. I was in 10th grade, I think it was. I started learning like the German numbers, and I mean, it was never, I never was planning on using it for anything, but that's where I started with German. So I knew a little bit, and I remembered certain phrases that I would use here and there randomly, but I never thought I would actually learn German. And then now I have a husband in Germany. He's from Germany. So that's why I'm starting to learn German, because I want to be able to have full conversations and actually use it. So totally random, like I said, in high school, I started learning it, but I never actually thought that I would use it.
That's really funny.
Yeah, right. Totally random.
Yeah, I think like someone that I remember who worked in the career center when I was in college, she was saying that she signed her brother up for German courses because like she always did his schedule and everything. Um, I mean, I'm the oldest sibling, but I've never done that for my brother or anything. But he's like, why would you sign me up for all these German classes? And then he ended up being stationed in the military in Germany. He's like,
oh, that's cool. That's convenient.
I was like, wow.
Yeah, I mean, I took like Spanish classes in high school. Well, I grew up learning Spanish, so I'm my first language was Spanish, but I just never really used it growing. Yeah, I mean, I took like Spanish classes in high school. Well, I grew up learning Spanish, so I'm my first language was Spanish, but I just never really used it growing up. So in high school, like there was never really anybody that I spoke to in Spanish. Like the only person was my mom, pretty much, and even my dad, I would talk to him in English, and he would respond to me in Spanish, but I would always respond in English. So I knew Spanish, but there was a point in high school when I kind of just like started losing, like I would forget certain words. And then so I think around 11th or 12th grade, I think I started listening to a lot more Spanish music. So I would listen to like Shakira. Shakira's my favorite. I love her. But I would start listening to like a lot of Spanish rock, and then I kind of got back in the flow of it. And then now I speak Spanish a lot more often, and then I teach it to my nieces and nephews. But there was a point where I was like kind of forgetting certain words, certain phrases, and yeah, so I didn't want to lose that.
Nice.
And
so like, where does Spanish come from? Because I know that, you know, I have different friends who are like, oh, I'm Mexican, or I'm Colombian, or I'm from different parts. Because I know that some people are like, no, don't assume that I'm Mexican because I speak Spanish or whatnot. Even my hairdresser, she's like part Mexican, but also like another part of her family is in Spain. So I was like, oh, well, that's really interesting.
oh, okay, cool. Well, yeah, so my parents are from Mexico. They're from Jalisco.
Okay.
So both of my parents are from Jalisco. And I've been out there a few times. I don't go out there too often. But I always liked Spanish from Argentina. Mm-hmm. Do you know the accent that they have? I've always loved their accent.
Yeah, there's like,
and sorry, go ahead.
No, sorry.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, at one point, like I started listening to Argentinian Spanish. I think, is that what you call it?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so yeah, I started watching videos with that accent, and then at one point, I remember talking to somebody, and they were like, "Oh, where is your accent from?" And I was like, my parents are from Jalisco, like it's, you know, Mexican Spanish." And they were like, "No, it sounds like it's from Argentina." And I was like, "Wow, I can't believe I actually picked it up." So yeah, I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah, I actually had a roommate who was from Argentina, and then I actually was watching a series on Netflix, which I actually ended up reviewing, and I put it on my website. But it was like, it's called Millennials, and
I don't think I watched it.
It's like the modern day version of Friends, where it's like these like 6 people. They're like I think a couple of them are actual couples, but like they hang out at this co-working space all the time, and they're just like working, and then it's just like all this like stuff happen. It's just like, it's like Friends, but like they just like updated it to like modern time, but it's like also like Argentina, like it takes place in Argentina. So I was telling my roommate at the time, because she wasn't living with me at the time that I watched it, but I was like, oh my gosh, I noticed that they say this, like, do you use that? She's like, yeah, that's like slang, or like, well, like I noticed that like when you're trying to say like why someone is like what someone's doing here, you would say like ¿qué haces? But then it's like they're like or like, you know how we use like aquí, but they'll use acá, and I'm like, what?
Yeah, and I like the way they say, I think the way that they pronounce the double L's. Mm-hmm. I'm trying to think of an example, but you know what I'm talking about, right? Like the way they pronounce, I don't know, it's what would be a good example? Like Castellano, when you're talking, when you're pronouncing the double L's, I don't know, it's just a different way of saying it.
Okay, yeah, because I know that like there's some places that like pronounce like the double L like kind of like a J, like we like an English would say as a J.
Yeah. That's what I was referring to.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Then I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, I love it.
So
Yeah, my Spanish comes from Mexico, from Jalisco.
okay. Yeah, because I know I have a friend of mine who's from Leon, which is like in like Guanajuato. So it's like south. So like I don't know. I mean, I don't know like from your experience like being there, but I know like for me like in that particular area, it's kind of like you know like when we come out of like the era of like Trump, it's like they're like Mexico, it's like drugs and rapists, and they're all coming up on the border. I'm like, and I went there, and I was like with my friend who I remember my friend, I met him when he was on exchange in college. I was like, why would you ever want to leave here? It's so nice, and everyone's
right? Yeah, I think people just in their minds, and even it's funny because even sometimes I get a little nervous to go out there just because of what my mom tells me, like, oh, like you have to be careful out there. I think people just have the wrong idea based on what they see, like on or what they hear on, I don't know, like YouTube, or I don't even know where people get those ideas from, but it's not as bad. Like it's really not as bad as people make it seem. You know, it's really beautiful out there.
Yeah, I think so too. Because even when I went there, my mom was like, "Okay, like make sure you're like stay with your friend and don't go anywhere." I'm like, my friend literally was like, "All right," like because he had like certain times like he had to work because I was there for a full week. He's like, "Hey, you should go to this place." He would drop me off, and I just have like a good time like walking around and things like that. And it was like Day of the Dead weekend.
Also. Oh, that's cool. That's exciting.
So, and I also like spoke Spanish, so I was like not the greatest at understanding it. Like I had to still like process it in my head, but by the time I left, I was like, okay, like this is pretty simple. Like feels like it felt like my hometown, which is like in Kentucky. So it's like everyone like says hello. Like his mom was telling me like when you make eye contact with someone, make sure you say hola. Don't do the LA thing where you're like, oh.
Yeah, don't look away. You never want to look away, especially if you make eye contact.
Yeah.
No, that's really cool though. One thing that I do love about Mexican culture, compared to, I don't know, like living in a big city like LA, everybody greets each other, or everybody knows you like on a first name basis, you know? So, especially like the small towns that my parents are from, everybody knows you. And I remember when we were younger, the last time I went, I think I was, I don't know, I want to say like 16 years old. But anytime I would show up, like for vacation or whatever the reason was, they would refer to us, to me and my sister, as the girls, like the girls. So they would say, oh, the girls are here. The girls are here. So yeah, everybody just knew us. Everybody was friendly, and you know, we knew each other on a first name basis. So I like that that everybody's still like, if they invite you over to come have breakfast or something, or have lunch, they actually mean it, compared to like here where it's more like, yeah, you should come hang out sometime, and it's like that time never comes, you know? So that's one thing that I do love about Mexican culture, is that it's more, what's the word I'm looking for? People actually, what's the word that I'm looking for here? They actually mean it. They're actually very, very genuine, very welcoming.
Okay, yeah. So I think like when I like went there, I was like, this is like my hometown, except we just don't speak the same language.
Yeah.
So like with going from like, you know, obviously learning English and Spanish, you know, from, you know, the very beginning, like, did you have any particular expectations like with learning German? Like, oh, it's going to be easy because it's similar to this, or like, oh, it's going to be hard because of whatever, you know, reason that you may have had.
You know, I thought German would be more similar to English, but I'm finding, I don't know if this is just me, but I'm finding that it's more similar to Spanish. What do you think?
I mean, I think it's kind of similar to both in a way, because the sentence structure is very, and as you know from from like me teaching you every week, is that like the sentence structure is just so different.
Yep.
So like in certain ways, like when you use like for example, like in like French, for example, like there are certain adjectives that we put after the noun, but with like German, like you can always put it in it's always comes before. It just comes the same way as English does. So the sentence structure kind of feels similar to English. The accent felt very much similar to French to me. In some ways, a little bit Spanish, but mainly like the R's. I didn't have a problem with that because in French, you always roll your R's from the back of the throat.
Oh yeah. That was one of my challenges. I mean, it still kind of is. You tell me all the time. But well, yeah, I guess as far as like sentence structure, yeah, to me it seems more similar to English. But when it comes to actual comprehension, like understanding certain words, I think I get more from, I get more of an understanding from Spanish words that I know.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I wasn't expecting that. I really wasn't. But I think knowing English and Spanish has definitely made it easier.
Yeah. I mean, people say that, like, or at least I believe that after you get to a second language, it's like, I already have learned how to I've learned a second language. So it's like, okay, like third language is kind of like, okay, we're doing this.
Yeah.
So like, because I know that sometimes, you know, when it comes to language learning, like as you know, I speak multiple, but you know, sometimes like when I encounter people who speak, you know, who are just bilingual, and they're like, well, I learned 2 languages, that's like enough. You know, I can understand one and another. I'm not monolingual, but I still know one. But so like in your mind, like why would it be necessary for, you know, anyone to want to learn a third, at least like from your perspective? I mean, I have my own reasons, but
yeah. That's funny. I was going to ask you the same thing. So I think it opens up so much doors for you, you know, especially like I try to teach my nieces and nephews to consistently use Spanish and English, not just English. So I think, I don't know, you get to meet new people, you get to talk about, you know, different cultures and I don't know, there's just a lot more to experience, you know?
Mm-hmm. And I think I feel the same way, because I know like with all of them, it's like out of like looking at my entire like network, especially like international, I'm like, I realize like because I do like reach out to different people about interviewing,
Yeah.
like because there's so many different people within different cultures to really, you know, pull from. But it's like I realized I was going through my list and I was like, wow, I know so many people around the world. And a lot of times
Yeah,
it's like,
awesome.
and a lot of people that I know, it's like we've become closer because of language. I mean, even with my former roommate who was from, I had another roommate who was from Italy. And I was telling her, like, yeah, Italian's my 5th language. I'm learning it because I just, you know, why not? And she's like, oh, I'm Italian. Like, that's so awesome. Like, she's kind of like, I hope you don't take this the wrong way, but it's kind of like, she's kind of like a snob about it. Like, she loves her culture. I mean that in the best way possible because I love her. But she's like, oh my gosh, like, don't listen to that particular music. Like, listen to this music because this is good. This is like more like, that's pop culture. Like, this is actual like Italian culture. Like, or like she'll correct me on stuff and she's like, you need to listen to this. Like, you need to watch this. I'm like, okay, cool. For me, I'm like, I'm learning. Cool. But yeah.
Yeah, I think that is awesome to know so many people from different backgrounds, you know, different cultures. And I've had a few friends. Actually, I've always gotten along with people that were from different countries. So I've had a friend that was from Turkey, and I've had a friend she was Dutch. But I've had so many friends from different places that would teach me, their culture and from Jalisco.
Okay. Yeah.
So yeah, overall, I just think it opens up more opportunities for you to experience and to get to know more cultures and learn a lot more, you know?
Yeah. And so, like, on that note, I mean, like, because I know that the way that we met, which we met through, I believe it was like Bumble BFF, because I meet like a lot of different people through there, because I'm like, where are people in my area that like speak certain language? Like, I literally use these apps to find people who I can actually speak certain languages with. And so, like, in terms of like, you know, having technology that allows us to be able to broaden our network, like, do you feel like the same way in that sense?
Yeah, I definitely think it has its pros and cons, but I would say definitely more pros because, like you just said, I think it's so cool that you can actually go on there and specifically search for a certain type of person.
Mm-hmm.
So instead of, I don't know, like having to meet somebody in person, you can literally go online and just alter what you're looking for, so to speak. So, Yeah, I think social media, if you use it in the right way, I think it's definitely a helpful tool. And yeah, meeting new people through social media, I think that's like the new, um, I mean, the new norm.
Well, yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, because I think like I don't know. I mean, like I think with like certain people, like I realized that like I would have never met them if not for social media. Because like one of my friends that I actually interviewed last month, who
Uh,
was from France, I remember like we met through Bumble BFF, and we actually went on a hike
oh,
together. We were like the whole time we were just talking about like just speaking in like Franglish the whole time. Because we're both trying to learn each other's language. So I was like, this is perfect. And then we rode by like this restaurant. It was like by like Los Feliz. It was called La Poubelle. And we're like laughing because it's like, oh wow, the trash.
is that actually what it means?
That's it's like a trash. It means a trash can. If you wanted like to throw something in the trash can, you would say jeter l'ordure dans la poubelle. Like,
Wow, that sounds so fancy.
I was like, wow, like do they actually make like good food there? So
Did you say that was in LA or where was that?
it was in Los Feliz. It's like right,
Oh,
like somewhere near. I know it's like somewhere near like Griffith Park because that's where it came from.
oh, okay, yeah.
Yeah,
I
I was
know.
like, wow, that's hilarious.
That's
So
like Glendale area, right?
yeah, I think some like close to it.
Okay. Yeah, I've never heard of it, but it sounds fancy. So I don't know French, so I would have never known.
Yeah. It's really interesting how like I mean there are certain things that I've seen where like people say they'll like take certain things that they're like, oh that sounds fancy, and they'll like put that on like something, and I'm like 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 I remember like there was this one taco place. It was called Pinches Tacos, and I was like I was like
Yeah. I think I've been there actually, and I think they have great tacos if it's the one I'm thinking of.
so like most normal people are like, oh, like this is a cool place. It's like Spanish. It's like, don't say that out loud to like the wrong person.
Oh my god, I think that's so funny. That's great.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think I have been there. But that's funny.
Yeah. So I don't know. It's just
So
like one thing I noticed. So so like in a certain sense of like, through the process of learning German particularly, like what do you feel like has been like the like hardest part for you?
Let's see. Okay, the hardest thing I would say, definitely the R and getting the right R sound. But overall, I think the hardest part would be letting go of what I know from English and how English is supposed to be phrased and like the certain rules of English. Letting go of all of that and then starting fresh. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Instead of trying to apply all the rules from English, learning everything new from a totally different language.
Right.
So yeah, I think that's been the biggest challenge for me, like trying to implement English language structure into German. The easiest thing I would say, I think once I got a basic overall or basic understanding of like the main concepts or the main like the basic things that I needed to learn first. Once I got the hang of that, then it kind of just started flowing. Like the cases, that was the very first thing that you taught me, but we've been spending more time on that. I think that's what really has helped me the most and what's been easiest. Like once I learned that, it just made everything so much easier. So definitely learning the cases.
Yeah, I mean, I think it makes sense considering that German itself is just kind of like an odd language, at least for me, because it's like, I mean, even with like, like with like, other romantic languages like French and Spanish and Italian, is that like there's this, there's gender. It's like masculine, feminine, but it's like German. It's like, oh, we're gonna throw in a neutral, and then it's like, and not only that, we're gonna have like these 4 different cases that like throw everybody off because it's like what. So it's like for me, I think like I think I kind of identify with that because it's like, okay, I'm just gonna like for me, I always take like sort of like an immersive approach when it comes to learning a language. Like, okay, so I'm not gonna just like try to like there's like the lexical components of languages where it's like lexical is like this word means this word, but sometimes it's like in other languages you can't really go off of that because sometimes one word can be what takes us like 4 words to say. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And then
I get what you.
so it's like you just have to take it as it comes and then just kind of like with watching like movies. I always tell people that because you can just like see like you just see how people react to what they just said. It's like I am hearing the words, but it's like I just saw that this person did this because of this person said this. So I'm like, okay, so that must be what that means. Does that make sense?
It's yeah, so it's like basically you can't really go off of like a word for word because it doesn't always exist.
I've had to learn that the hard way.
So I think, and then like, you know, after learning another language over and over and over again, it's like, okay, so I can't think this way because I learned my lessons from these mistakes I had to like get over from like, for example, like in French, the one thing I had to really get a handle on just masculine and feminine. And then, okay, you know, certain adjectives come before the noun, some come after. So after the next language, I'm like, okay, so I know it took me forever to learn this. How can I learn it faster in this? Like, you know, like Italian, it's like Spanish and French. So I'm like, okay, so it should be this generally the same concept. So it should be easier to kind of pick up because it's the same rules. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I see what you mean. What can I ask you a question, Jess? What was the easiest language that you've learned so far?
That's kind of hard. I mean, because French just felt kind of natural to pick up just because, I mean, I learned that like since I was a kid. So for me, it's been like, oh, okay, like, it's like, oh, okay. So it's like, all right, so we got this. And then by the time I was a senior in high school, I'm like, okay, so this is not that hard. But I think like in terms of after that, like in terms of picking up a language, I would say it would have to have been either Spanish or Italian because they were so similar to what I already knew.
Okay.
German, I think it's like a close second or third because it's like English, but then like the accent was so easy to pronounce. I mean, I think there's just different components. Like Italian, for example, like the accent is similar to Spanish, and then like some of the same rules kind of apply with French. So I'm like, okay, well, it's like, okay, well, I'm kind of reading. Like I remember the first time I took a Italian lesson because I found these like YouTube videos, and I was like, wow, I can easily read in Italian. Wow. I was like, I think that's what it means. And then they explained it and I'm like, okay, yeah, it's exactly what I think it is. So you just have more to go off on. But I think that Italian and I would say Spanish were the easiest.
Italian and Spanish. Do you think it's easier now to pick up more and more languages? Like, does it become easier as you go, even if it's like a totally different language?
I mean, for me, I mean, all the languages I basically know are Latin based, or at least like mainly European based. I mean, I don't know. I think when it comes to learning another language outside of that, like I've always wanted to learn Arabic, for example, and I know like 3 words, but if I were to write that out in Arabic, I'm like, I don't know. They're like little curly, cute. And like one of my friends in college, her family actually is Syrian, and she was saying that they know how to speak it around each other, like in terms of like, you know, family and friends. But she said that her sister took a class on how to write it, and she was like, this is so hard because it's like, I'm like, how do you read that? It looks beautiful, but I'm like, how do you read that? You know?
Yeah. Arabic is a beautiful language. I always wanted to learn it. I started listening to Arabic music in high school. And I love it. It's a beautiful language. It really is.
I mean, in terms of, because I know you said that you're married to someone who is German, like how do you think that like in terms of like, because I know I have friends, I have, you know, dated people, I have dated a German before, so it's kind of like, okay, well, like how do you kind of deal with like the cultural boundary? Because I know for me, one thing is I always feel like I'm like, are you bored with me? Like, because he doesn't really like talk much, or like if I ask him a question, he gives me like a direct answer, and I'm like, and he's like, no, like everything's fine. And I'm like, but you're not interested. You don't act interested.
I think just getting used to the way that German culture is, like, definitely more straightforward and not as they tend not to sugarcoat things at all. So something that I'm just like I might get hurt by, I have to remember, like, oh, he didn't mean it in a bad way. Like, he didn't mean that to, like, that's just really how he meant to say it, you know, like, that's just really how he feels about it. So something that I take emotionally, or something that I would take the wrong way, he totally means in a non-hurtful way, you know? So I just have to get used to, or I had to get used to that. I'm used to it now. But I think the hardest thing was that I didn't realize, I didn't really think about it. Like, there is a cultural difference there. And he's even told me, yeah, Germans are a lot more straightforward. And yeah, so I think that's one of the things that I've had to get used to. Another thing is that they're really punctual, and they get really angry if you're not on time. So he's told me about that, but I just have to make sure that I'm on time and never late. So, I mean, it's not like he gets mad about it or anything, but he's told me, like, he's told me some of the differences from there compared to American culture. So, yeah, I think it's just realizing that there are differences. But yeah, I mean, it hasn't been anything too bad, you know, just small little things that I have to adjust to, but it's not anything bad, anything crazy.
Yeah, I agree, because I mean, it's like certain things, like, like it's like, the question where it's like, oh, do these jeans make me look fat? And they're like, actually, those don't actually look really good on you. You should try something else. And you're like, what? You can give me this fake nice compliment that most Americans do. So it's like,
it's funny because I remember it was one of the very first times that he was here visiting me, and I was wearing some jeans, and I think it was like a tank top or something, and I was like, hey, do these make me look fat? And he was like, yeah, but very straightforward. And I was like, oh my God. He lied to me, but no, it was pretty funny. It was pretty funny.
Yeah, I think like this one person I was seeing for a while, like I remember I was asking him, I was like, I hope you're not one of those guys that's just trying to, like, the only thing on your radar is just trying to sleep with me. He's like, no, I mean, like, I want to do other things, but yes, I do want to sleep with you. I was like, what? I was like, I've never had anyone tell me that before.
Oh my God.
I was like, yes, but
Great. Wow, that's so funny. Yeah, just I think getting used to that. I mean, it takes a while, you know, but but I think it's better, you know.
Yeah, you just know where you stand.
Yeah, exactly.
So, I mean, in the sense of like learning a third language, like, do you feel like that has in a way like changed you in some point, or, in the fact that, with your husband's side of the family, do you feel like that kind of has impacted your relationship, and any, like, not just with your husband, but with, like, other relatives too?
Let's see. I think, has it impacted me? I think it has. I mean, I think it's created a stronger bond between us. I don't know how to explain it, or yeah, I just think that's like showing an interest in his culture, showing an interest in being able to communicate with his family in his language. I think that's important. I think it's important to him too. So yeah, I think that, yeah, that's pretty much all I would say.
Yeah, because I know, like, it does, in a way, I feel like it does make a difference where it's like, okay, like, I don't know how to say this in English, but it's like, oh, actually, you know what, I can just say, like, because I've seen, like, there are, like, couples where, like, they'll, like, like, one person will say something in another language, and they'll respond back in English. So it's like, oh, it's just easier to say it in, like, whatever the language is. And they're like, oh, yeah, I know what you're saying. And then other people, like, for me, like, before, getting to a point where, I'm learning all these different languages, I was literally sitting there like, what's happening? It's like he's speaking and then they're responding, and like it's like okay, they understand each other, but like
Yeah.
it's like oh no, like I don't know what that word is, and then it's like oh what's that one word, and it's like oh this is what the word is in English, and it's like oh okay yeah that's what I meant.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, that happens occasionally. Not too often, but every now and then he'll ask me, or yeah, like I'll do that in Spanish too. Like I can't think of a word in English, and then I'll say it in Spanish. But he actually understands Spanish too, so
Okay.
yeah, it works out.
Okay. And then like going forward, do you feel like do you have any like particular like personal goals in terms of like where you want to see yourself? Because I know obviously I see you every week, but it's like in your mind you feel like okay, like I will be like for me it's like oh it would be really great if I can just get this particular to get to this particular point by I don't know a certain point in time, or like do you feel like you have like certain strong like personal goals that you feel like you want to like in a way like achieve before a certain time, or just anything in terms of language proficiency?
Well, as far as goals, I've kind of been just going with the flow. I know, well, there's this talk that I watched on TED Talks where it says 20 hours of learning something would get you like to a proficient level. And I went into it thinking, okay, well, 20 hours is going to be all that it takes, and I'll be able to speak it. So I've kind of been going in with that mindset, like not really a deadline of when I have to know German or when I should be able to speak it, but just kind of going with the flow and having fun with it. Yeah, I don't have any like deadlines or anything. It's just more of like making it a habit of practicing and learning it.
Okay, like are there certain like things that you particularly want to like learn to like particularly certain things you want to master, or like do you feel like there's certain things you want to be able to talk about at some point?
Yeah, I definitely want to be able to have a full blown conversation. I want a definite like my definite goal is to be able to speak German the way I speak Spanish or the way I speak English. So that's my overall like at the end of all of this, like I want to be able to speak German fluently. Um, but you actually sparked an interest in me like learning multiple language or even more languages after that. So after German or after getting to a proficient level with German, I want to start learning French. And I've even told you that I would want you to teach me French too. So yeah, venture out into other languages and see how many I can learn.
Yeah, I'm gonna be honest with you, it's an addiction. It's like you meet certain people. Like I remember, like I told you, I learned German because my friend from church was saying like, oh yeah, that's cool that you're learning Spanish, but German is hard. And I'm like, oh well, I'm gonna see what this German is about, And then next thing you know, it's like, you know what? If I can learn two languages at the same time, let's learn three. And then it just like kind of goes, and I'm like, oh, I'm curious about Catalan. They speak that in Spain. What is that like? So it's like I don't know. It just gets to sometimes to a point where you're just like, I can't stop.
Yeah. And then, well, yeah, I mean, I was going to ask you, what's your, like, what is that passion behind it? Like, why are you so passionate about learning different languages? Is it just like mastering, or is it like the fact that you can do it, or where does that come from?
To be honest with you, I have no idea. I think because like for me, like I always knew since I was a little girl that I really wanted to learn French because I mean, from a little girl and based on like the media at that time, it's like you see like Paris is like this glamorous thing. That's actually why I went into fashion school in the first place. And so when I started, actually learning it, I mean, to be honest with you, it was just easier to pick up because I really wanted to learn it. And I love the culture behind it because I had this idea, as a kid, like I would love to like, at the time I was thinking about, having my own fashion brand and like being in different countries and different cities and, and meeting different people. And so part of meeting different people involves speaking different languages. Mm-hmm. I mean, to be honest with you, I mean, I think that's also like where certain opportunities, can come from. Like, I think like with, the fact that I worked in different places when I was in LA, and even in Orange County, where people were speaking Spanish. Like I remember the sewers, they were all speaking in Spanish. And I'm like, I would love to know what they're saying. Or like, like even when I first moved to LA, I was like, everyone speaks Spanish. Like you can throw a stone and someone speaks Spanish. And then like my church at the time, they were doing Spanish worship service. They're like, we want to reach out to different people. And I was like, that's awesome. So I went because I was like, language and culture, I may not understand Spanish, but might as well, go and learn something. I didn't understand anything except a few words that Dora taught me when I was a kid. So I'm like, okay, like I don't understand any thoughts. I understand words. And then I went out to dinner afterwards with some friends, and they were all like, they were so hyped on everything, and they're like, we're speaking Spanish, because they were also like, one of my good friends who's also a business partner of mine. He's from Honduras. So I was like, oh, okay, like all these different people, and I was like, that's it. I'm learning Spanish because everyone's speaking it, and I'm like not in on it. So, and I understand like a little bit because of like French and Spanish are similar, like they're literally neighbors. But I was like, I really should learn. And then after that, it just kind of, the more I met people, and it's just like, sometimes I was thinking, how does that certain language like is structured? Like with German, I'm like, it sounds interesting, but I want to know like, how do people understand it? And I'm a very, empathetic person. So I'm like, I really want to know like what goes on the minds of other people. So it's like language is part of that. Like, how do they understand this language? Mm-hmm. So sometimes I learn languages where I'm not trying to be necessarily fluent, but it's just more so as I want to understand how they read it or how they write it or how they speak it.
Wow. Yeah. See, you're so passionate. Even listening to you talk about it right now, I'm like, oh my God, I'm inspired.
Yeah. I mean, just, there's, and like you were saying earlier, is that there's so many different opportunities, and with all the different friends that I'm making, it was just like, I mean, I remember when I was in between jobs where I had, I got let go from my first job, and I was waiting on my second job, and I was working as like a Lyft driver in between. And I met so many different people. Like someone offered me a job for a German recycling company just because I spoke German to them. Like he's like, he got so excited. He's like, oh my gosh, my driver's speaking to me in German. He's like, here's my card. If you ever want to work for a company that's based in Germany, like let me know. I had people get in my car, speak French, and they're like, oh, you speak French. Okay, cool. This makes everything so much easier. I've had people speak Spanish. I've had people speak like so many different languages. So it just kind of, opportunities just start gravitating.
Wow, that's so cool. And yeah, that's cool that you know people around the entire world. That's awesome.
Yeah. I mean, and it also helps like living in a city like LA, where like, I mean, when you think about it, so many people around the world come to LA because of, like all the different industries that are there. Yeah.
That's very true. Yeah, and I always met so many Spanish speakers. Like anytime I would take Ubers or get a Lyft, like Lyft ride, yeah, I would always speak Spanish or Spanish.
Mm-hmm. And you just like will be surprised how many people are surprised that a Black person speaks their language. I'm like, there are such things like Afro-Latinas, like, they exist. I mean, even though I'm born in America, but like, or like when people will be like, oh, you're Black and you speak French, like, are you Haitian? I'm like, why is that the go-to?
Wow.
Like, I have that on multiple occasions. I was like, okay, do people like in America not understand that there are so many different countries that speak French?
Wow. So, have you ever gotten something, or have you ever had a moment where you've been offended?
That moment.
It seemed like it.
After like I started getting that like 3 or 4 times, I was like, what in the world? Like, is this like a thing?
Wow.
And then I remember like when like Emily in Paris came out, and there was a YouTuber I used to watch when I was before I studied abroad. It's called Not Even French, and she would talk about like French culture because she was from New Zealand and she moved to Paris, and she's like, let me tell you everything about living here. And so one of the things that she said when she did a video reviewing that, and she said one thing that bothered me was that they didn't show at all the diversity in Paris, because you have people from like African descent countries, you have people from like, like Middle East, you have people from like, there's certain like arrondissements in Paris where like more people of a particular nationality or background particularly hang out in those areas. Mm-hmm. So like, and I noticed that when I was there, and even with the World Cup, it's like half the team was like when you've got like Pembe, Mbappe, and like Pogba, I'm like, these people are like, I'm like, well, like they're there, it's like, and like you can't really miss it. So that she's like, I don't understand why there's not any diversity in the people around in the environment, you know?
Yeah, I totally get that.
Because I know, like, even with my friend who's from Mexico, like, he was saying that even though, like, there's not really, you know, racism, it's like there's still like colorism, you know, there's always some sort of ism, you know, there, or some hierarchical like thing or something like that.
Yeah, I see what you mean.
Yeah, but I was just like,
Oh,
what? But yeah, I'm just like, why is Haitian? I always rant about that. I need to stop, but that's like one thing I always am like, why is it like, why am I always Haitian, you know? And I just told you I was American.
I can't believe that. That's yeah, I don't know why people automatically would assume that.
Yeah, it's funny. Like, I'm like, I was born in America. I'm speaking to you in English in an American accent. And I'm like, oh, and I also speak French. I'm like, oh, are you Haitian? I'm like, I just said I'm American. But yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So that's my answer today.
I think Americans kind of are a little like closed off when it comes to like for me, I'll give you an example. Like me, I didn't know I didn't know there was Germans from African descent. Like I honestly, I don't know why that never crossed my mind. And then when I met my husband, I was like, "You're German?" Like it was just, you know, like did not know that. So I think it's just not being exposed to like other countries as often, I guess.
Yeah. I think like the other aspect, and I remember I was taking an online course on global citizenship, and one of the I think it was like the fourth week we had talked about like immigration and democracy, and they were talking about how you know, like immigration is really kind of like a big topic. I mean, when you think about America, we're like, there's really no official language. We just assume that it's English because we mainly speak English, but it's like you still like, even in like, you know, like the southern states, it's like people still speak Spanish. Like when you think about, you know, LA particularly, and like California was a Spanish colony at one point, so sometimes languages still kind of linger. And then, you know, people sometimes are like, I want my kids to like still learn this language because like a language is only alive if people still speak it.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, it's like even in the same situation with, you know, across the ocean, it's like, well, Moroccans, they speak French like natively. So it's like, okay, well, as one of their like main like three languages. And it's like, okay, well, if I'm gonna migrate, I don't really need to go all the way to America because they speak a completely different language. I'm gonna go to France because we have a common language, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Like there's a lot, like even like an artist that I really like, Aya Nakamura. She's from Mali, and which is like mainly in like, I believe, West Africa, and then like she moved to France. So it's like, well, there's like a war. I think there was a civil war going on in Mali at one point. So it's like mostly it's just easier to just cross the Mediterranean.
Hey, Jazz, I was gonna ask you. This kind of ties in, I guess. How do you think other countries or people of other countries view us as Americans? Like, what do you think their view on us is?
I mean, I sometimes ask my friends this question because, like, I think like when Trump was elected, that's when they're like, I had people texting me like, "What are you guys crazy?" Because it's like, you know, I mean, especially, you know, when you have other countries where it's like, you know, in Germany they have Angela Merkel, they have a woman, you know, there, you know, and also not to mention she's actually a good leader. Or like you have like a lot of particularly like European countries, they're a little bit more progressive, I would say, in terms of how like French culture, they're like very like when it comes to like protesting and like going on strikes, that's their thing. They're like, if we want change, like we're going to go on the streets, we're going to leave work, we don't care what it is, we're going to fight for it. And then, you know, when we had Obama, it's like, oh wow, that's so awesome, America's not racist. You know, like they actually had someone there, you know, not only that, but he was a good person. And so I remember, like, I think there was a time where like Obama actually gave Merkel like a medal, like some form of like of honor, actually. So it's like, you know, we had this person that like people were just like, the world just fell in love with them, and it's like, what's going on? Why are people storming the Capitol? Like, why are people talking about like Mexicans? Like, why are people talking about like all these like racist, like sexist things? Like, you know, like, or like shootings. It's like, well, like my friend in Belgium, he's like, oh, we're not allowed to have guns. The only people who are allowed to have them are like the military or maybe police. And I'm like, really?
Yeah.
So I was like, oh, let me ask you a stupid question. So like, how many shootings do you have? He's like, we don't have any. I'm like, exactly.
Wow.
You know?
Yeah, that's crazy. Yeah, compared to like other countries, like all the shootings that go on here, it's, I mean, other countries don't even really have guns for the most part.
I know that, just kind of like slightly changing topic. I know that you had talked about the fact that you have a jewelry brand, because I keep seeing like the name pop up every once in a while. It's like, yeah. So like, tell me a little bit more about that.
I just recently started last year. I think it was in October. Honestly, it's kind of just like something that I do on the side for now. Eventually, yeah, I want to grow it. I want to scale it, and make it a pretty well-known brand. But it started off honestly because I was living in Hollywood, and I would always see these homeless people, like the same homeless people over and over again. And I just thought it would be like a good way to give back. And like the profit that I was making from the jewelry that I was selling, I was actually using it to give back to like the homeless people. So like on the weekends, what I would do, like I would work, I would sell jewelry online, and then I would just, on the weekends, I would go down on Hollywood Boulevard and just, you know, feed homeless people. So it started off that way. I want to use it. My idea behind it is I want to use it as a platform for other people to like share their gift or share their passion or what they're passionate for or about. And you maybe do like collaborations with people and, you know, like customize their jewelry and stuff like that. But it's still in the works. It's still in the making. Like I said, I do want to scale it, but for now, I want to use it as a platform. The idea behind it is that I want to use it as a platform for other people to share their passions and their what they like to do. I know that's kind of different coming from a jewelry brand, right? But I want to use it as a way to give back, you know? So that's the purpose behind that.
Yeah, I think it's like always good to give back at some point, because I know like for me, and I'm like, you know, obviously for me, I'm very, very close to my faith. So I've always believed in like the golden rule, like where like Jesus says, like, do unto others as you would want others to do unto you. So I'm like, I always feel like, okay, like I've never in my life had to deal with being homeless. I've never had to deal with, you know, I've always been educated. You know, my parents put me in private school when I was, you know, a first, you know, actually, no, my mom said that when she got out of the hospital after having me, he was literally driving around, like trying to visit all these different schools. So, you know, I'm very fortunate to have parents who are like, okay, like, you know, she's just been born, we need to like already put our application in and like be waitlisted so that by the time she's like 5 or like old enough to go to school, like she's, yeah. I mean, I'm very fortunate. So I feel like with, you know, with what I do with Multilingual and Philanthropic Incorporated is it's like, education is like such a powerful tool, because it's like,
yeah, it truly is.
It's like light in darkness. It's like you can actually see what's going on.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. It's very true. Hey Jazz, I was thinking of another question, like a follow-up question that I wanted to ask you on what you said. Do you think, because like I said, I see that you're so passionate about what you do, and whenever we have a class together, the way you teach me, I feel like it's like you put everything that you have into it. And that's why I think you're such a great teacher, because you really do, like you put everything that you have into it. So my question is, here, let me see what I was wanting to ask you. Do you think that because it's something that you're passionate about, that you're so passionate about, it's easier for you to like be in a flow state and share your gift with the world, so to speak?
I don't know. I feel like sometimes I get lost, and I think that's a good thing, because I think like sometimes, you know, like sometimes like when people do certain things, it's like I want to do things to look good. Like I want to look like I'm doing like good for people. But I think like for me, it's like I've always been told that you want to find something where you can just like lose yourself. Like it's like, because I feel like if I'm not doing it because I'm passionate about it, I just would be doing it for the sake of, you know, like nonprofit work. I mean, I grew up in it because my parents do that. But I don't know, I think like for me it's been like if I'm not like extremely passionate about it, like why would anyone else want to learn, want to learn from me, um and like I love like all the other thing is I really as you can probably tell is I'm a really big fan of the Obamas. So I've read like all their books. So I'm like for me it's like I like when I'm talking to people I'm always like can I channel them, because like for some reason like they're like particularly Obama, he's very good at like getting people to hang on to their words. So I feel like when I speak about things that I'm passionate about, like how can I grab people's attention to where they can not so much as care about me, but it's like what I'm actually trying to get people to care about, which is education.
Yeah. And like I said, I totally see that. Like whenever you teach me, I just feel the genuine desire for me to learn, or for me to learn what you're teaching me. So yeah, I think you're a great teacher. You're an awesome teacher.
I appreciate that. I think the other thing is like I also have to learn to be patient, because I'm like not everyone is like me where it's like okay, languages, I get it, like you just learn it and then whatever, it's like I realize okay, like not everyone gets it the same way, so I have to like sometimes I have to think okay, like how do I approach this that's not from my perspective, if that makes sense. So I always have to think about the other person.
Yeah.
All right, well thanks so much. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate everything that you've taught me so far, and I'm excited to start learning French too.
All right, well, I hope that you enjoyed this episode. I know that this is April, so this is the month of Earth Day on the 22nd. So I hope that you do some really great earth sustainable things, like planting trees. One of the things that I love about a company that I do banking with, Aspiration, they actually they have this program called Plant Your Change, and every time you buy something from a sustainable brand, they actually will have it to where you can they'll plant a tree, and every time you reach a certain number of trees, like you reach a different level, and they give you like cash back for planting a certain number of trees. And then also like they also pay you like a signing bonus just for opening an account. I'm actually not paid to say that. I actually am just saying that because it's true. I actually opened an account with them towards the end of last year because I was looking for a different bank. I'm not a really big fan of Bank of America. Please like this video if you agree with me. But yeah, I was looking for something better, and basically Aspiration, they have better terms. They don't charge you for everything. I feel like I've made a lot of money from, well, not a lot, but like I've made a fair amount of money just from banking with them, like $150 just for opening an account. And then also I got $100 just because I spent like $1,000 within I think like a 90-day period. So I was like, oh, that's really cool. Just like all of a sudden it's like $100 credit just showed up, and I was like, oh, that's so cool. So I really like that, and I really like them. And then also not only that, but like I said, you're really supporting the environment. And also like when you have like if you choose to pay any fees, you get to choose where they go. So I pay like $2 per month that I chose to pay, and it goes to health and it goes to water. So you get to choose which cause it goes to. So I really recommend them. I'll have the link, referral link below. Also, if you choose that referral link, you get $50 and I get $50 depending on how long you've had your account. So yeah, so I will talk to you guys later, and I'll see you next month on this series. Bye.